was built by Augustus in the 1st century before Christ. And it finished here. So this was a simple fountain until the second half of the 18th century, when the popes decided to build this huge fountain in here.
Well, Betty, make sure that you've got your coins so that you can throw them in the fountain.
Oh, I'm too cheap for that. I keep the coins and I make the wish. Yeah.
Hey, whatever works, whatever works.
No,
I threw the coins in.
I did too. I'm just teasing when I say that.
This was the place, not far from here. It was a kind of neighborhood where Spanish lived. And that's why we have the Spanish, the embassy of Spain. But that embassy is not for the by the Italian government, but this is the Spanish embassy by the Holy See, the Vatican. So, and unfortunately we have scaffoldings over there, but that is the famous column of the Immaculate Conception.
Are they refurbishing?
Now they are, yes, they are cleaning the column. On the top of the column, there is the Immaculate Conception, the statue of the Immaculate Conception. So after a flood, there were a lot of floods before, so there were many old boats in this area. So maybe just thinking about the boats, about the floods, he made the fountain with the shape of an old boat. Now the steps were built in the 1800s, and just to make a beautiful connection between the upper part of that hill and this part. If you go straight, it is one line, the steps and that street, one line to the river. Okay? On the top of the hill there is the Church of the Holy Trinity, and the name is the Holy Trinity, the Trinity on the mountain, because of the hill, and the Egyptian obelisk, as we have seen before.
Betty, you know, we really covered a lot of territory on this particular day. We saw a lot of, well, we started at the Vatican, and then we went all through a lot of these plazas and things, but this was just, we were heading toward the bus, and I saw these beautiful walls here, and I could imagine on top of that, of course, there had to be beautiful gardens and probably beautiful villas, but we were sort of down on the street. But isn't it gorgeous?
Oh, it is beautiful. You think of all the man hours that were put into making that, and of course, the material was available.
Oh yeah, and
so
you think also the other thing is you think how long that has been there as well. I mean, that's absolutely something. So, it's such a beautiful city. I think Rome is such a beautiful city.
The eternal city.
The
Everybody,
eternal city. Even our embassy right here that you can see, the United States Embassy, is not a bad-looking building, is it?
But everything gets better with age. It's too bad we don't do the same thing, you know? It would be nice, wouldn't it? But it becomes more beautiful because it takes on a patina.
Patina, right?
Yeah.
Is that an Italian word? Patina.
Patina. No,
I don't know.
But and when you have foliage and greenery and statues
and fountains like
this.
this.
Yeah. I love Rome. I've been there several times, and it is always
a
treat
gorgeous
to go.
city. It really is. The thing is that Rome is so big that you have to go back, because I mean. And of course, we go back to a lot of the same places, but if we have the opportunity, then we can branch out and go to some other places as well, because there's just so much to see.
Yeah,
and
look at the
so much
traffic.
history.
Always,
Look
everywhere
at that,
we go, huh? There's traffic.
But I think the traffic has gotten better in Rome, at least this last time that I saw. But this truck had a little problem, and he was just, I guess the guy was going to change a tire or something there. I'm not quite sure what. It just slowed us up for a little bit, but not too terribly long, because we were going to head now outside of the city of Rome, and we're going to travel through the Umbrian coast not coast, but I should say
Countryside.
countryside. That's what. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
Oh, you're welcome.
And as we go along, we can see these magnificent buildings that are up on top of these hills. Some of them, we say, oh, look, is that a monastery? I don't know.
Yeah.
It may be a winery. I mean, there are all sorts of different types of things, or villages that we can see up here, too.
It almost looked deserted, that one, but I'm sure it wasn't. Some of them they've also turned into bed and breakfasts, you know, for tourists.
Yeah, and there are a lot of wonderful places like that. That if you're traveling individually, that you can stay.
Now, did you do this because it's reminiscent of the Fresno?
Well, no, I did that because we
agriculture?
were on a rest stop, and I wanted to show a little close up of some of the crops that they were growing right there. But there you can see another hillside, and all through the region of Umbria, you see this is beautiful rolling hills and these wonderful villages that are located up on top of them.
They talk about, Ireland. We talked always about the green of Ireland,
Yeah.
but look at the green that we just saw
Oh,
there.
yeah.
It's just
We-
shades of green too.
See, that's true. We've just entered now the lower part of Assisi, and this great big church that we can see right here, we'll have a little explanation of it by one of our guides a little bit later on. But what we want to do is we want to travel now on up into the village, which is located up on top of the hill. And the drive from this point on is absolutely, I just thought it was just so picturesque. It was like a postcard. And so we're going to head up there, and we're going to meet one of our guides. We'll have several of them as we travel along through Assisi. And Betty, I know you've been there before, but this is my first time, so I want to listen to the guide and hear what he has to say.
Urban settlement was founded around 500 years BC. So it says to say more than 2,500 years ago.
Wow.
But we will be able to see, in fact, still standing on Assisi's main square, a beautifully preserved Roman temple, an original Roman temple from the 1st century BC. For the rest, Assisi still preserves its beautiful medieval aspect with white and pink stones. All the buildings are made with tiny bichromatic contrast of white and pink stones.
Great having an escalator, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we didn't have to climb up the hill. I mean, that's really great. That's a modern convenience, and I was very happy for it.
It was made in the year 1317, but new in comparison to former older walls from the 13th century back to the 11th century and as far back as to Roman times. For Assisi had also Roman walls and Roman buildings, as you will see soon. So we pass straight through.
You know, Betty, what interested me as we get into the village up here on top of the hill, I counted, and there may be more, I counted 11 churches that were up here. And I mean, the village or the little city up here doesn't look to be that big, but of course it's very, very old.
Well, I
And-
just hope they're being used and not just there for falling apart because nobody's using them.
Well, I suspect that they're doing a pretty
You
good
think
job.
they
As you
do
can see,
good?
there's reconstruction work going up here, as we can see right now.
Those buttresses were added during, so the church, the entire church stood in the year 1260. It was constructed very quickly, maybe too quickly. Too much enthusiasm to Honor Claire. For she died 1253, so 1260, very short time. Therefore, since the beginning, they had some static problems, the level of the foundation, the connection with the walls. They were compelled to add those flying buttresses in order to try to keep better the walls together. Beautiful image as a painting, as an object of art if you want. It was painted around the year 1150. But moreover, following the tradition, during the time of St. Francis's own conversion, that is to say, fall of the year 1205, he was praying in front of that image with very deep fervor, and while praying he heard several times, like a voice, calling him repeatedly, "Help me to repair my house, it's all falling into ruins." And he did understand this call, by repairing the very roof and walls of the tiny church of San Damiano, where this originally was. It was not in that chapel. Why now in that chapel? Because that St. George's Chapel was the first burial place for St. Francis after his death. There he was also spoken saint, canonization, and therefore by that time this very important cross hung in that chapel.
The church, which was built between the 8th and 9th centuries over the remains of an older building, was in a state of abandon in the summer of 1205, when Francis, who had just recovered from an illness, came here to pray before a painted crucifix. He heard the crucifix repeating a command.
Go, Francis, and repair my house, which, as you can see, is in ruins.
The young Francis, interpreting the divine words literally, ran to his father's warehouse, loaded his horse with cloths, and sold them in Foligno, receiving money that he then tried to give to the chaplain of San Damiano for its repair. When the priest refused the money, Francis threw it all out a window. He later repaired the church himself, working as a laborer and receiving alms. In 1225, Francis marked with the stigmata, offered up to God at San Damiano the Canticle of the Sun, the song of a man who has reached salvation, a new man who has renounced himself to make room for God. Here in 1212, Francis welcomed Clare and her followers and established their residence in San Damiano. The choir in oak preserves the memory of the poverty and simplicity of the life of St. Clare and her companions. San Damiano was thus the symbol and the putting into practice of Franciscan poverty, which St. Clare defended through divine inspiration. With her humility, Clare lived in the spirit of the Beatitudes of the Gospel. In the plain below Assisi, the church of Santa Maria di Rivotorto was built over the remains of a 16th century church to incorporate what had been St. Francis's hovel. The old hovel of most humility, found in front of the entrance, sheltered Francis and his two first followers, Bernardo di Quintavalle and Pietro Catani. The hovel is made up of 3 small rooms. The central area served as a chapel. The room on the left was a kitchen storage area, and the room on the right, which contains a wooden statue of St. Francis, was for resting. Here, Francis wrote the first draft of his rule and gave his followers the name of minors. Here, he met with them again after receiving approval for his rule from Innocent III. The Rivotorto hovel is a reminder of Francis's heroic beginnings, following the example of poverty in Christ. Here, Francis and his early companions carried out a life of labor and contemplation based solely on the essential. Located in the plain below Assisi is one of the most important Franciscan sites, Santa Maria degli Angeli. This basilica, one of the largest in the world, was built in the second half of the 16th century by the order of Pius V to shelter and preserve the tiny Porziuncola chapel and the Transito chapel. The fastigium is topped by a statue of the Madonna in gilded bronze. This was the true center of the Franciscan community, a place for meeting, resting, and reflection, the cradle of the order. Every journey made by St. Francis and his followers started from and ended up at the Porziuncola. This little chapel stands underneath the dome of the basilica. It was originally an oratory built for pilgrims returning from the Holy Land and was dedicated to Saint Mary of the Angels. This is the place where Francis, hearing the gospel, understood more clearly his call and his mission. Francis loved the Porziuncola more than any other home. He counseled his friars.
Be careful not to leave this place. If you are driven out one door, come back in the other, because it is truly holy and the house of God.
You know, Betty, with so many churches there to see, it might get a little bit confusing, but we were able to go inside the church right here. However, the town was getting ready for a great big musical, and the radio and television, the government RAI, had all of their equipment there, and so some of the stuff was blocked off for us, so we didn't get a chance to see it. And of course, there was also a lot of reconstruction work that was going on.
Now this is up on, as you're looking down.
Yeah.
Into the countryside.
Beautiful.
So it gives you a bit of an idea. Now, you say Assisi? Is that what you say? I say Assisi. Assisi. I say Assisi. You go Azizi.
Assisi.
You go Azizi.
Assisi.
You make it easy.
Well, however.
But I really don't know the exact, but you always say St. Francis of Assisi. Isn't that
or
right?
Assisi.
All right, okay, you win. But it's surprising because I didn't know how really populated it was going to be. Mm-hmm. I was thinking always, well, of course, in terms of little tiny places, and this was extensive.
After St. Francis started his order, I mean, he had a lot of followers. I mean, lots and lots and lots. So I would imagine that's how this built up so much. And even down there on the flats, too, because the great big church is down there, too. It was very important also in St. Francis's life. But we could spend a lot more time here and learn a lot more about St. Francis and also the Franciscan order. I think it was very interesting because he had one of the popes as one of his protectors, and that helped his order grow. Betty, they had some wonderful things for sale out there, too. Isn't that beautiful?
What were those? What do you see there? Those are little replicas of what?
Those are carvings.
Carvings.
Of all sorts of different other things.
Dog. It's incredible. He's shouting just at noon. 11 o'clock? No. Just at 12. Oh. Only 12. Incredible. He has a clock he got a clock in the brain. Eh? Not 11, not 10, only 12. We are standing on Assisi's main square. In front of us, still standing, the front, the beautiful columns of an original Roman temple, which was built during the 1st century BC, a bit more than 2,000 years ago, during the last years of the old Roman Republic, before the empire. So well preserved, the columns, the Corinthian-style capitals, all the gable decoration, the cornice, and the wall behind. The original arch is the highest one. Later it was filled with wall. following the tradition, this was a temple dedicated to Minerva, the daughter of Jupiter. So dates from Roman Assisi. By the temple, the civic tower, Torre del Popolo, and 5 public buildings, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all belonging to the medieval commune and used for the purposes and needs of medieval administration, when Assisi was a self-independent city-state.
I think that it was interesting to see that here in Assisi that also, as in many other places too, where you had the Roman temples and the temple that was dedicated to the goddess Minerva then had been converted into a church. And of course we can see we're right here in this kind of little main square right here.
I love this area right
Beautiful.
here. And there was a wonderful restaurant right down at the other end where we
Did you
had
have lunch there?
Yes.
Oh, you did?
Yes, it
What
was
did you have?
very, very good.
Pasta?
No, I had a sandwich of some kind, but it was good. And I was hungry, and people were very friendly. So it was a nice afternoon.
Immediately after the canonization of St. Francis, which occurred in July 1228, thousands of pilgrims started to come to Assisi. And, you know, in medieval times, there was no public assistance in modern terms, but there was a lot of organization for private association for assistance. So pilgrims were given here in this building, this is from the 13th century, were given some shelter, some foods, many of them the means to spend overnight, and later on the same institution developed in order to take care from orphans, children without parents, and even to start some small credit lines, credit activities directed towards the poor. The institution was here because here is the main axe connecting St. Francis, the Church of St. Francis, and the square. So it's quite natural to be on that road. And in fact, we will walk a few yards and we will get to the Church of St. Francis now.
You know, Betty, it must have been so interesting. I mean, it's for those years and years and years with pilgrims coming to Assisi, and the wonderful, wonderful pilgrimages that they must have had. And we continue that today because here we are. There you can see those television trucks up there, and they were, as I said, they were getting ready for the next day. They were going to have a big, big musical originating from here.
And one day during the fall of the year 1205, embracing as a brother a poor leper, a leprosy, you understand, this terrible illness. There were less than dogs by that time. So he recognized as his true brother a leper. And this was the beginning, the real beginning of his own conversion. This happened not many days before the prayer in front of the crucifixion, the cross of San Damiano, we have seen earlier in the church. So he began and became a very charismatic leader of a radical new brotherhood. At first they were called the Poor Men of Assisi, later Minor Friars, and later on, of course, after his death, Franciscans. Today, the Franciscan family is still the largest one in the within the Christian orders. And when Francis was alive, he could develop his early brotherhood as far as to count more than 6,000 friars. Most of them, the overwhelming majority, were poor people and laymen. There were some priests, but there was just a tiny number. It was the first time in European Christian history that the popular, very popular movement of laymen and poor men had something essential to say in spiritual, religious terms. So it was an incredible movement, and all Europe was drawn, if you want, through this adventure. At last, of course, he died. He died October 1226. He was spoken as saint on July 1228, so very, very soon, personally by the Pope, Gregory IX, who had been his close friend and protector before. So it must be understood the Pope himself as the real founder for this double church.
I think the basilica is
excuse me.
beautiful,
I was
huh?
going to beat you to it
Oh,
this
okay,
time.
all right.
You know what? I like this part a lot. I like this little church that we went into, and it was so interesting because we had to run around, I did, and find things in English so we could have
So
the
could have
mass
the mass in
because
English,
everything was
right.
in Italian. And when you have it's just your group and your mass, it just becomes so very, very personal.
It really
and
does.
then you get the idea. Look where we are. We're in Assisi, where St. Francis did all
Right.
of the things, and you become part of it. It's great.
And the interesting thing too is that Father is a Franciscan.
Yes,
You know,
he
who,
was a.
who went with us. You know, it was just so really, really wonderful seeing our group here. And of course, we're in the Basilica of St. Francis. That the lower church was started in 1228,
Yeah.
and then the upper one in 1230.
I like this I like this old stuff.
This is where they watered the horses, where the pilgrims came, and they watered their horses when they came to make their pilgrimage to Assisi.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful, beautiful place. Betty, I want to go back here again. You know, I'd like to spend even more time here, and I think every time we go back, we learn more and more and more, and it's so great because we saw so much of Italy, and it was so beautiful. Look at
Now,
these
this
streets.
is what I prefer. I like the old cobblestones. I like to go into the narrow streets. I like to put my nose in all of these little shops and try to communicate, even though I don't speak Italian, with the people.
Right, right. No, and that's what's so much fun, too. It really is. Well, anyway, we are going to leave Assisi, and we're going to leave our trip to the beautiful, beautiful country of Italy.
This
But
ends
Betty's
our
got more trips
tour,
coming up.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is the end of our tour,
Right.
and we're really sad about it. But you call me at 488-7443 and find out what we have planned for the future.
We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.